So that time lapse didn't even show you my full setup, but here it is. I think I'm getting everything in the shot. It's taking up a whole dining room table, and that's one of the questions. Why bother playing a game that is so physically big? I know people have questions. Why bother playing a game that has so many rules and pieces and seems a little bit hard to get into? My question for myself also is, why bother doing a video about a game that has so many videos? What I want to do, hopefully briefly, is just explain a little bit about the way that I play Mage Knight, why I play it, and really pay homage to a fantastic design, and a design that's so great it is flexible enough to have its rules bent and not break the game. And the way that I play Mage Knight, which I've developed over the years using a bunch of awesome fan-based supporting materials, I guess I'd call them, such as these cards here that we'll take a look at, and also this stack of cards here, which represents a store that you can buy things in. Of course, you need money for that store. Here's my money here. I get issued 5. Why? Well, that's the rule I made up. Just want to explain a little bit about how, in my version of Mage Knight, this adds a lot of play and decision making, and also enables the game to be a little less combat centric, because some of the decisions engendered by the rules that I use have nothing to do with combat. There are quests that come in with the other cards and choices about what to purchase and where to go to buy things. So for example, here is a setup at the beginning of the game. And we see, by the way, I'm using yet another way I play the game my own way, is I've got the Lost Legion expansion here, but I'm only using it for the map. I don't like playing against any type of AI that I need to manipulate in any way. For me, simply having the AI to almost mark time passing is the way to go. But I do like the variability of terrain and the additions of things that come in. So here I've pulled the 2 starting map tiles. I'm at the start position, and right away I have to make choices. We're not even looking at the cards in my hand. I have chosen as my tactic planning. I pretty much always choose planning first for myself to increase my hand size. The way that I play with the adventure card, the quest card edition, fan-based edition, these can be picked up in monasteries, they can be picked up in villages. So an initial choice is, where am I going to go? Because I definitely want to pick up one of those cards. In the game as I play it, there are a set number of quests you need to complete to have victory in the game, and you need to do so by traveling through the emerging map and ultimately collecting crystals, which I add in as well. They are here, 4 of them, and bringing them back to your starting point. Again, this is very different from the fame-based markers here in the way the game has been designed, although I do keep track of all of that, obviously, because I need to increase, as I would here, my capacity to have allies and my capacity to have different skills. So I'm following really a hybrid of the rules, and I need a marker here. Certainly following that as well. In any case, back to the initial choice here. My first decision is where to go. I see too here that should I decide to go to the monastery and get the benefits that the monastery offers, which are the benefits from the base game as well as my little twist on it, in order to fight this orc here, I'm dealing with a wall. I would have to go through this difficult terrain. It's blocked. I mean, this is in effect a very difficult tile to deal with. So I probably ultimately will decide to go this way, even though the entry cost here is pretty high, and then just forego and maybe move on because this path here is too difficult. Well, here we are again, and maybe some of you noticed my error. I had misplaced this tile. It was upside down, and the orientation is now correct. You may say, well, if you're not following the other rules, why do you follow these rules? Again, this set of rules is my house rules. I am very rigid about following some of the rules, and I am flexible about following others. And I feel that this makes the game work for me. And I am rigid about the placement because it certainly is well thought out and makes sense just even visually. So in any case, with the proper placement of this tile, I would decide, if I was playing this game, to go through the maze, taking my chance that with what would in effect be my second hand of cards, I would use just movement to get here on my cards, draw ultimately a new couple of cards, and with my one extra, my planning tactic, I know that my initial card hand did not contain too many combat cards, so hopefully I'll get a couple, and I can deal with the challenge that's going to be here if I just pay to get there. So I'll draw an enemy token that is brown, hope for the best, and then move on, probably going over this wall, fighting this orc, and then moving on to the monastery to try, hopefully, to pick up my first quest. Well, that actually did not work out for me. I picked up this gargoyle, and he had this physical resistance. It did not have enough to deal with that. I took some wounds. I did get some more combat cards as I thought I might, but maybe that was a bad choice. It's a bit later now, and I have moved into the monastery, and I just want to show you again why I bother playing with these other rules. In the monastery, it is one of the places you can pick up these cards. My rules say you pick up 3 and you take 1. On these cards, if it has an arrow like this, it means it's an immediate card. You must do this immediately to gain the benefit. The requirement here is to immediately draw a random gray enemy token, defeat it, and you get your reward, which is as stated here. I am in no position to be fighting right now, so immediately I know that that is not going to be one of the cards I take. Do I have to take one? No. But I want to. That's why I came here. So I look here at the broken windmill. There's very nice flavor text on these cards, and it does add even more of the story. But we're going to focus here on the requirements for this one. What I would need to do is carry this around, and during one turn cast a blue or white spell in this inhabited site. And by that, I mean it would mean another monastery. So I'd be carrying this around to get to a monastery, or, I suppose you could take that to mean a village or any inhabited site. The wording here is vague. I think I tend to play where it needs to go back to the type of card that it is. What you get there, 1 reputation, and then until the end of the game, peasants and foresters cost 2 less influence. I don't think that's such a great benefit for a card that is going to direct where I go, and then I'm in turn going to need a spell, which I don't have. This is like a long game type of card, so I'm ruling that out, and I'm down to this last card, which hopefully I'm going to find potentially some benefit from. This is a fiery weapons. I would pay 1 red crystal at this village, so it's directed me to a village during a turn, and I would get a reward. Actually pretty good. Get to choose a unit. Sometimes these cards are pretty unbalanced, because to me paying a red crystal for this potential reward is pretty good. I'm going to need to carry it around with me and be able to, be near a village or get to a village when I have a red crystal to spare. May or may not happen. My rule for my game is that I can be carrying up to 5 of these cards at any given time, and if I cannot discard them by completing them, I can't get any more. So I'm going to hang on to fiery weapons and continue on. Let's talk a little bit about the store. It's really fun to buy things in games. At least I think it's fun to buy things in games. And I have some excellent money tokens here, gold tokens from another game that I've repurposed. And some of the items available in the store are ongoing. So, for example, this mount is very expensive, 10 gold, but it will reduce the movement cost of every space by 1. This is excellent to get later in the game, especially if you are playing as I do, where you're basically making a circuit on the board once you have the 4 crystals that you're trying to get, and to get back to your starting point by the end of the last night, again, whatever that night might be. Sometimes I would play 2 days and nights, sometimes I would play 3 days and nights, depending on the difficulty level and also the time that I have. This is another 10 gold item that's a different mount. It's a griffin, and here it lets you move up to 2 revealed spaces, so that's pretty awesome too. And another one, a little bit cheaper, but this lets you carry, I use this a lot, this lets you in effect carry an item for later use, and that can be pretty useful, and also the crystal inventory limit being increased is nice. There are some things that are cheaper. There's fire weapon here is 5 gold. It provides fire attack of 1. And there is this magic item, which is in effect letting you store up a random crystal, mana crystal, and taking it for later use. That can be coming in handy and giving you some flexibility down the road also. And here we have a magic item that's an accessory that gives you, it's an amulet that gives you an additional influence. So these are some of the samplings. I don't actually know how many cards there are in this file. I think I downloaded the whole file. I'll put up the information. I think this is just an excellent addition to the game in terms of providing you with things to think about, ways to do things slightly differently in the game, and provide a different flow to the game, particularly, for example, if you're moving faster, as just one example from the store. So I mentioned these 4 crystals earlier on, and they play an integral part of the game that I play, of my Mage Knight, in that part of the goal of the game is to have enough assets to pick up the crystals and deliver them back to your starting point. So you might wonder, well, where do you get them? Well, I found these 4 things in a game, or in my game closet, I should say, from a game I had discarded, and I liked them and I wanted to use them, and I was thinking about how I could use them, and I thought, what has 4 things? Well, of course, there are 4 cities in Mage Knight, and as I said earlier, I am not a huge fan of having the entire, ultimately really the entire goal or narrative or vision of the Mage Knight game being getting to a city and defeating the city. It's just more combat to me, and I like to do different things when I'm playing this kind of game than just more combat. So in my version of the game, I will put in all 4 city tiles. Again, depending on how long a turn or how long a game I want, I will put in the 4 city tiles at the end. They may be mixed with other core tiles, they may not. I may intersperse them throughout. It just sort of depends on what I decide at the beginning of the game. The only thing that's consistent for me in the rules is that once I set a rule at the beginning of the game, I don't change it through the game just because it's not going well for me. So if I've decided that the city tiles are going to come in at the end and I'm feeling like there's no way I'm going to be able to access them, I don't all of a sudden decide, well, hey, let me just put one in right now. In any event, each city in my version of the game contains one of these crystals. In order to get the crystal, you need to have, you need to basically pay for the crystal with crystals of your own. And this is where the different levels can come in effect mirroring a higher city level. So if I've decided, again, at the beginning of the game, if I've decided that one city, they're all level 1 cities, then that would require a minimum number of crystals of different colors, say 1 of each color. If they are higher level, perhaps I will decide on a different algorithm that needs, or I should say formula really, that needs to be met in order to obtain the crystals. When you have the crystals, you're going back and the game is ended if you can get back to your starting point with the 4 crystals before time runs out. So that's a little bit about my Mage Knight, and I know that my Mage Knight is not your Mage Knight, and that's okay. It is a flexible, dynamic, deep, immersive game, and the design can stand up to tweaks and changes and customizations, and that is just one of the many things that makes it so brilliant. I hope that those of you who are thinking about the game, who like solo play, who like a fantasy theme, who appreciate depth and complexity and card play, because at the heart of it, I believe this is a card game, will look at some of the excellent playthrough and how to play videos that have been out there for years and use that as an opportunity to allow yourself to participate in one of the great board gaming experiences out there, especially for solo play. I have played this game with another person, and a couple of the times we did that, we ended up just sort of ending up playing on the same team, as it were, because I think it really shines most as a solo game. It is a game that rewards a lot of thought, slow pacing, and attention to detail, and that can get a little much, at least for me, when I'm sitting on the other side watching somebody do all of that stuff. Mage Knight, it is, for the solo player, I think, the height of design out there.